Hi, John.
Howdy, howdy.
Today is going to be a loaded, impactful day for you guys. So, John and I are um, going to talk to you today about Home Joiner, the website that I just launched and am so excited about. That, within a few months, I'm just going to be referring all my business to John. That's the goal. That's the goal. I need you guys, though. I need all realtors. I need all outside salespeople. Home Joiner was created because I am getting ready to celebrate my 20th anniversary in real estate as a full-time realtor. And in doing so, um, you know how you hit like this big mark where it's 20 years in and you're like, okay, what am I leaving this industry with? And I'm not leaving anytime soon, but what am I leaving this industry with? And what have I learned in the last 20 years? And the thing that I've learned the most, John, is that in the last 20 years, there is a missing link, that bridge that we talk about all the time in real estate. And people think that they have this understanding of what actually happens in real estate, and they have no clue. Buyer is involved in about 50% of the transaction, where the agent is involved in 100% of the transaction. So what I mean by
Yep.
that, yeah, what I mean by that is there is at least half, if not more, of what's going on in your transaction. The agent is doing behind the scenes with your title officer, with your lender, with your inspectors. They're providing you with a service that is 100% in your favor. So from day one, when you meet a realtor and you have that person start showing you home, their experience and their craftsmanship and their negotiation skills are all coming into play. You see it.
Showing houses is between 10 and 15% of what we do.
It's nothing. It's
It's
like
nothing.
it's nothing.
It's
You
nothing.
That's why people can hire someone to open the door. Like literally go look at the house. We've got the inspection. So when you start the inspection process, now no realtors that I'm aware of are contractors. So let's just start there. They though need to know what flags there are to look for when you're looking at the house originally with them. So that person that just opened the door for you, when they say to you, "Oh, look at the chimney, look at the flashing, look at the roof, look at the electrical panel, look at this, look at that." That's all their experience put together in that presentation so that when you're in the house with them, you're trying to um find everything that you can find. They're never going to find it all, but they're going to try to make sure that before you go and invest your money in your inspections, that you know what you're buying, right? So that's just a little tiny piece. I would say that the transaction is equivalent to like what, 1,000 piece puzzle, right? Not an 8 piece puzzle like some people think it is. It's more like 1,000 piece puzzle, because literally the negotiations haven't even begun until you
No,
found the house you want.
no.
They haven't
And
even started.
and let's face it, you're we to be real with a buyer, it's like, look, if you're not prepared to do at least up to 8 contracts, then
Don't
this
look for
process isn't for you.
No, right. If you
No.
right, exactly. If you are going to not understand the process, like I almost feel like buyers should be able to be involved with every step just to learn. But I
It's
mean,
impossible.
no point in it,
It's
right? Because
impossible. It's
they'll be in their house
impossible.
for a couple years. But
It's
yeah, there's just
impossible. I've had buyers tell me I want to know everything, and then
mm,
we start in and they go, "Remember that thing where I said I want to know everything? I don't want to know anything. Just tell me where
and
I need to sign."
yeah. And so sellers out there, when you're asking for feedback, right? I love feedback because sellers will say, I would like to be copied on all feedback. And immediately, when that agent responds with, "Sue, this is a shit house," or "This house needs everything," or "No, it smells like this or that." Sellers, why do you want to hear that? I mean, why do you really want to hear it? If they don't like your house, they're going to not buy it, right? I mean,
My
if they
standard
like it, they're gonna
response. My
Yeah.
standard response is I don't get into all that. Smells,
Right.
dirtiness. They know their house is dirty.
Absolutely.
I just say it's not a fit for this buyer and move on.
So, and I mean, I think that the education and it's so important because an educated consumer, and that's what this is all about. We talk about it in the podcast, but Home Joiner, um, in a whole is going to be a directory for consumers to be able to go in, to be able to know about my insurance, to be able to know about um, my licensing, to be able to know about John's insurance, to be able to know about John's licensing, and to have bios to actually understand what we have done in our experience and portray that to you. Now, it's not just for real estate, it's for your plumbers, your electricians, your handymen, your contractors, anybody and everybody, because that's not available. Where can you find that, John? It's not out there. If you're looking for a plumber, you're Googling plumber and 25 pop up and you know nothing about them. Some of them are paying Google big money to come up first, right? I mean, same thing with realtors. Everybody is just guessing or on Facebook Marketplace, right? I need a realtor. Here's 200 responses. Home Joiner is made for you. It's made for the realtors out there that are busting their butts every day, that are paying thousands and thousands of dollars to be on realtor.com or Zillow or these other sites that are trying to just sell leads. That's all they're doing. I mean, you're on there and you're searching for houses as a consumer, but that you don't see the other side of it where that realtor is paying 35, 45, 55% of their commissions as a whole just to get your name and number. And there needs to be an understanding so that people can not do that, not be hurtful, not take the money out of the realtor's pocket. So you think that realtors are making a lot of money right now. That's what that's the joke of the town, right? Oh, well, you make X amount of dollars on this deal. And the reality is that that realtor has probably put out a couple $1,000s just in advertising for that month. We can stop it. We can stop all that nonsense by joining together as professionals in real estate related service businesses and say, hey, look, you want to find us? Here we are. We're not only in your neighborhoods, but we're ready to help you. And we are available immediately. You know what I mean? Like whatever that person wants to put in their bio, they're able to do so on Home Joiner. You can, as a consumer, you can make a difference just by going to Home Joiner. Now, that it's been released a week ago. So, there's not a lot of people that have signed up yet. So we need people to join that are going to be contractors. You know what I mean? Like if you want to put your information out there, we need you to help us grow. And that's what we're asking you to do is consider the fact that your life does not have to be so expensive. How many times do I log on to real estate sites, that are on Facebook where realtors are communicating with each other because there's a ton of them. And every day, if you go down 5, 10 posts, you're going to see that realtor is saying, um, contact me. How do I find leads? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I get my name out there? Home Joiner is the answer. It's simple. $250 a year that you get to write off. So this is why Home Joiner is being formed. It's literally why we're creating it. We want to be able to help you, real estate agents, if you're out there and you're struggling. Stop paying Zillow. Help me and help John and help Home Joiner grow your area. We're not licensed there probably unless you're in Maryland and Pennsylvania and North Carolina. And I'm in Maryland. So, I got my North Carolina license because I intended to move to North Carolina. So we can refer anyone to you that's in any area out there. If the name pops up, if you're looking for a realtor, especially in any area in the country, I can connect you. So you do not have to go blind on Facebook to find a realtor just because you went to Home Joiner and maybe there's not a realtor there right now. Go to the contact button, call me, and I will introduce you personally to a realtor that qualifies for your business. What I mean by that is my brokerage actually does have agents everywhere, and we can refer you to those agents everywhere. And those agents that are getting the business from from in-house had to qualify to even get those leads. So, don't trust the websites out there. Trust an actual realtor. This is being built by a realtor for realtors for everybody in the home services business. John, what do you think about like some of the websites out there and what they're charging and what is going on? What's your opinion?
It's a phone number and a name. It's not a lead.
Right.
It's not a lead.
And how many buyers do you think on average are calling and asking to be shown a house when they're already represented? Like this is a problem.
Because they don't understand. They don't understand the agency relationship.
Absolutely.
Because we as agents in the past have done a really lousy job explaining the business side of what real estate looks like.
Yeah.
However, we're about 2 weeks out from everybody's reality becoming a real reality again.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be no more just ring, ring. I'll meet you there Saturday at 11. That won't work anymore.
Absolutely not. So the new law that's coming out August 17th is going to mean that basically you cannot see a house without a buyer agency agreement. So your buyer
try to get the listing agent to show you the house. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they probably will, because we've got so many agents out there that are not, God, should I say it? Not qualified to be realtors. Like they're just not qualified to be realtors. And they will break every rule and every law and everything that comes up.
But there's people like that in every industry.
Absolutely.
Every industry
is going to weed them out. If you are an agent that wants to play games and that wants to try to monopolize and take everything for yourself and be a jerk, don't join Home Joiner, please. Like just go somewhere else, because there has been so much time and effort and energy put into this, and we want everyone to be as professional as possible on this site. We're going to make sure that everybody's got their insurance up there, their license up there, their bio up there. If you've listened to these podcasts, you know what matters. Like you've educated yourself up to this point. I mean, what are we on, John? Do we even know? Are we on like 20, episode 20, episode 25? I mean, there's a lot of episodes that we've done to try to educate the consumer. And, we would love to get some feedback. We would love to know that we helped you and that you made some choices based on what you listened to. We're not wasting our time here. We're definitely
It'll be interesting to see what happens to the total showings the week prior to the change and then the week after the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I believe showings will go down, because eventually the buyers are going to get shut out.
Yeah, and understand, consumers that are listening to this, not necessarily agents, but that agent is going to have to sign a document with you. Be careful, but understand it's required. It's necessary. They cannot get paid by you. There cannot be any payment by the listing agent without you hiring them. So, nobody's going to work for free. And if they do, that is definitely not the person you want representing you. Do you want somebody that would work for free? Not me. I don't want anybody that's willing to provide all this service because they're scared to ask me. No, that's not a negotiator. Right? Like that's the last person. If that person can't sell me on signing a piece of paper, then sorry, move on. Like right there is the example that I think is going to be set. And so agents out there, you're going to have to be bold, you're going to have to be strong, and you're going to have to be honest.
You're going to have to use words.
Yeah, you're going to have to vocalize.
You're going to have to use words.
Yeah. Yep. Educate your consumers. Tell them what you have to go through. I mean, I think it's harder to um, say no to somebody when they're looking you in the eye and they're explaining and educating you on why they need that, right? Like if you just email them a form and say, "I'm sorry, but I need you to sign this," that's not doing your job. You need
Nope.
to explain why you need them to sign that. And then, go from there. But that there's going to be termination clauses. There's going to be ways for you to get out of that buyer broker agreement. However, don't
It's
be
gonna get it's
surprised.
gonna get it's gonna get real crazy.
It's going to be
Buyers,
crazy.
you're probably gonna see retainer fees.
100%. I'm going to do it. I'm going
That's
to charge
that's gonna
that.
come. That's gonna come.
Yeah.
And it's still not gonna slow down the market because those people who are serious, that are engaged, that have a buyer agent and a brokerage representing them, they're
100%.
still going to be buying houses, and you're going to be on the sideline doing nothing.
Yeah. It's very important that people understand that this change is huge. It's not a little change. It's giant. It's the biggest change that I've ever seen in 20 years, right? I mean, have you seen anything that's going to be as monumental as this change?
That's because agents refuse to do their job.
Yeah, agreed.
They
And
did.
that's why we're talking to you about Home Joiner too, is we're telling you, look, you're going to be able to read up on the agent that, by their bio. It's going to be on there for you. You're going to be able to call them and say, "Hey, look, you're going to be able to go if you want to know if they're paying buyer agency commission." We were talking before we started the episode, and the reality is that prices are so high and rates are so high that we are in a tough, tough place. What John was saying earlier about, 8, 9, 10 offers before you end up in the house, it matters, and you need to have an agent that is comfortable with you taking your time. I mean, settling on a property because there's only 5 of them available is not what I would suggest. It might take you 6 months instead of 6 weeks, but it's a big, big purchase. So make sure that you're with an agent that is willing to be in it for the long haul, because they're probably going to have to show you 100, 150 houses for you to get one. There's once in a blue moon we
and
get somebody
and
that
that's
finds one right away,
and
but
that's why and
if
that's why we won't do it without agreements. Sorry.
and right, and then when you start blaming the agent and you decide, "Oh, I'll find another agent," yeah, you can find agents that are going to make you do some really poor things. You know what I mean? Make some really bad choices, like waiving your home inspection. Um, and going 50, 60, $70,000 over the appraised value. I mean, you can do all that. That's
Yeah.
optional. You can do it. Just make sure that you know what you're doing before you make those decisions. You
Yep.
know, we were talking in the last episode when you weren't here, John, and we were talking about how I had a friend that bought a house through their agent, and it was FHA. So their agent actually told them they didn't need any inspections because the FHA appraiser, right? The FHA appraiser would do the inspection. And
Sure.
they weren't in the house for a month before the septic was collapsed in their backyard. They
Yep.
did no inspections based on this agent telling them that that's okay. I mean, and then they didn't have the money to pay for it because they put all their money into the house. So he and his buddies are out there digging up the yard. Now this is 20 some years ago, but um I wasn't even in real estate at the time, but it stuck with me, and it's one of those things where when your agent is pushing you to do certain things, it's because they've probably seen what can happen if you don't. Inspections are so important. If you're going to waive them, that's on you, but make sure you have the money to make whatever repairs to the foundation or to the roof or to the HVAC system or to, the septic tank, the well, the water quality. You're going to buy a house without testing the water if it's got a well. I mean,
Not if you're going VA, you're
if
not.
you got a baby, well, try it, right. And I think FHA too, right? Does FHA require it now? No? Oh Lord. I just did my first PHFA loan. So Pennsylvania housing loan. And very
Oh boy.
similar to Maryland's stuff, but it was my first one and I learned a lot about it. My buyer, excellent buyer, excellent credit, just needed the grant money to for closing. So I'm like, okay, there's a program for that. So we got in and boy is it different. Like termite was required.
Yeah.
All these things that are required for that loan. Um, I learned about through this transaction as well. So, know what you're doing, know who you're with, know that these programs are all different and that your lender, your title officer, they're all working with your realtor. You don't see any of it. Like you don't have the ability to see what goes on behind the scenes. And behind the scenes is probably 75% of the transaction.
Absolutely.
So be nice consumers to your buyer's agent or to your listing agent, whoever it is. It's tough on both sides.
Well, not only not only do we have that client, but most of us are carrying multiple clients, and so we have to work in and out of different transactions on a flow basis. So
Absolutely.
you have to keep abreast of not one transaction. You might have to keep abreast of 5 or 7 or 10 transactions
Yeah. Yeah.
to make
And
sure that you're still in the loop.
there's so much to be said about the differences in an individual agent and a team agent as well. And I think that both are great and both are bad. You know what I mean? Like there are teams that work together, um, and one person might be the showing agent that goes out and opens the door and says, hey, look, here you go. And then they've got somebody back at the office that's going to write the contract, and then they've got somebody else that's going to come and open the door for you. Very similar to like Redfin, where you're working with multiple agents, you're not getting one person. um, then you've got your individual agent that's going to sit with you from day one all the way through closing, with the exception of being on vacation or something. Um, so just, whatever you're comfortable with, ask questions, ask your agent. If I'm out of town, John or Amanda or some other agent that I've worked with in the past is going to step in and open the door for me. They're going to call me and I'm going to get in trouble because I'm in the bathroom at the restaurant with my family. Like that's a true story. Like I'll have to tell my clients, sorry if you hear the toilet flush, but my family's at the table and I work all the time. So I had to sneak into the bathroom so that my family wasn't upset for the rest of the night because I couldn't take 2 hours off. Like that's just the reality of this job.
Yep.
There was a woman who, when I was younger and I first got started, she owned a hardware store, and I just thought she was the coolest lady, and if she listens to this, she set the bar very high for me. And her hard work, her work ethic, her kindness, how she carried herself, it just impressed me. And she called me from the bathroom one time. And she was like, Sue, I need you. It was before I was even in real estate, but she called me from the bathroom and she's like, I need you to run this ad. I want you to go ahead. It was when I was doing advertising sales. But I'm in the bathroom. So I'm at dinner with the family. And then I found myself a few years later in the bathroom hiding from my family so that I could have these conversations. And people are willing to literally, I guess, to finish this sentence, call you the next day and say, I decided to go with this other agent because you didn't do what you needed to. Like, don't be that person. Just don't, don't do it. Don't be that person because karma is nasty, right? And you're going to end up with an agent that could care less about you. So just something to food for thought. John, we did get a couple questions in. So how do I get started finding listings in territories on a small budget?
Look, we're all searching the same inventory. There's no magic inventory.
Right. But
I
how
mean,
did
occasionally you'll run across something that somebody is doing off market, but there's no off market in the MLS.
right.
If you have a small budget, it's going to be tough.
So, and again, this just opens an opportunity for me to remind whoever that agent is about Home Joiner, because $250 a year, you're welcome. That's on purpose. It's really, it's almost like I did this deceptively, if I can say that, because when I look at the expenses that some of these other companies are doing, and I'm like, okay, how can this be profitable, but just life saving for some realtors in the business, right? And some contractors that I know that are struggling. How do I help them? And $250 a year that you get to write off at the end of the year is how. So take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Like, all I can do is dangle the carrot and say, look, help me grow this business. Help me make your life easy when you're sitting at your desk and answering your phone, like people used to do in the olden days, right? Like, people picked up a phone book, found a plumber, called the plumber, and that plumber came out, and that's how that introduction was made. Now we have Google. We have people that are technically advanced, right? That are doing AI ads that, I mean, if they're young and they're smart and they're capable, that's what you're doing. They're earning your business because they're smart enough to get on Facebook and come and be creative. That's not what you need in a realtor. You need somebody that can go to bat for you, depending on what side you're on, and that has the experience to do so. I can't create magic ads. I'm not capable of doing that. John will tell you how many weeks we've sat here because I don't know how to turn on the volume, right? Like, I mean, there's so much going on behind the scenes, guys, that, I'm not trying to dumb myself down. Certainly, I have an IT guy that logs into my computer and fixes all this stuff. So thank God. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from my experience or my ability to sell your house. That's what I'm good at, not
Yep.
advertising on Facebook. So, Home Joiner is going to do that for you.
I'm just not going to. I'm just not going to run people down. I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is why we have a consultation. It's really for twofold, just like the agreement.
Yeah.
My goal to having the meeting to determine if we're signing an agreement is
Yeah.
to determine if it's a fit for me. I can say it selfishly. First of all, it has to work for me because I'm going to be the one doing the work.
Yeah.
So if it's not for you, believe it's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
So I know these buyers out here because listen, NAR does statistics all the time about how many touches an unrepresented buyer will do before they put their hands up to hire talent.
Yeah.
That window is going to get much
Gone.
shorter.
Yeah, it's gone.
Because-
If an agent is, here's the thing, if an agent is showing you a house without a buyer broker agreement, they're violating the law.
Right. Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. They're violating their license.
Plain and simple.
And, it's up to you if you're willing to work with someone that's willing to violate their license. Because guess what? If they're willing to violate their license, they're willing to give the other agent information about you. They're
More
willing
than likely.
yeah, I mean, they're willing to do whatever they have to do to get the deal to the table.
Hey,
And that doesn't really benefit you.
may not be in your best interest.
Exactly.
So,
That's my,
if I sign less buyers, so be it. I'll just do more listings.
yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, when we talk about change coming, we're talking about a tidal wave of change.
If you just focus on doing 5 more listings, you'll have 15 more buyer opportunities to determine if you want to work with them. Plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
And that way you grow it organically instead of off some list.
Yeah. I mean, consumers are, they're lacking the education that they need. And that's
They're
what
going
we're
to be in
doing.
a tough
We're
spot.
trying to educate
Our
them. It's very
industry,
hard.
our industry was never the automobile industry.
No. And there's just this belief it's that simple. And I don't know what car dealers do. I mean, I've seen when I've bought a car a few times, like I do my homework. I go to truecar.com. That website is so good that, I don't mind sharing that information, because when I did it, I was contacted immediately by like 5 car dealerships, and that might be annoying, but I was actually buying. So I was willing to negotiate. I told these guys exactly what I wanted. They said, look, I have one in here. I can have one in here Saturday. I can have this. I can have that. I told them everything down to the interior detail of the color I wanted. And they were like, got it. I get out there. Did they have it? No, that they didn't have the sunroof that I said I needed. They didn't have the navigation that I said I needed. I mean, I need a sunroof. I want a sunroof, period. Like,
Yeah, but they got you to show up.
they got me in the door. And then as they're talking, like if you're a salesperson and you listen to salespeople, they do give you clues. And they said, oh, she's a TrueCar client. And I'm like, yeah, which tells you that I've now negotiated with 4 other places. So don't try to charge me a god awful amount of money for this car. There's TrueCar price, and then there's regular car price. And I learned that. So TrueCar, you're welcome for me including you on this podcast. But it's because it's for the consumer, and I will always share my good news. I ended up getting a great deal on the car, and I ended up getting the car I wanted because they did show me one without the stuff. And I said, okay, well, what about that one that was a step up and had everything I wanted for the same price? Guess what? I got the one I wanted for the same price. So win-win. Um, but real estate's not that. It's not the same thing. There's no way to associate a car salesperson with a realtor. They're not the same. So people need to understand, when you sign a buyer agreement, that new law states that agreement cannot be changed. So
Right.
we cannot increase the commission based on what's offered. It has to be at the time of the signing of the buyer agreement.
Yeah,
I
because we
think it
don't
can be
know.
lowered,
We
but
can
it
choose
cannot
to
be
take
higher.
less. We can
Right. You
choose
can
to
choose
take
to
less,
take less.
but we can't take more.
Correct. So when you sit down with your agent and they explain that to you, it's true. Just know ahead of time that when you're working with a buyer's agent, that they're going to tell you that this is the amount that they're going to agree to work for, and nothing less. Or maybe they can negotiate with you after the fact if the cooperation fee is less than being written in the buyer broker. But
Right.
they can't increase it. So let's say that the listing agent is offering what, 5%. We're just using crazy numbers. The listing agent's offering 5% buyer agent cooperation fee, right? So the seller is smart enough to know that he wants buyer agents in his house to sell his house. And he's smart enough to know that that is built into his sales price, right? So the whole concept of the seller's paying the buyer side, that's built into a sales price. Everybody knows that. It's nothing new. It's been the same for 20 years. Like the seller couldn't understand why he wasn't bringing buyers into the house. Like, where are your buyers? Why aren't you showing the house more? Why aren't people calling you? Well, because I represent you. Like, what do you mean? Why would you? What defense attorney or prosecuting attorney is getting calls on from a defendant? Like, there's 2 sides to the story. It's not like a coin has 2 sides, a buyer side, a seller side. So they're trying to make, this guy was saying that his seller, how does he handle it? Like, how should he handle talking to his seller? And his answer to the seller, like all these agents were responding with their answers. And I said, you just simply say, because I work for you. Like, where is the missing link there? How are people confused about the listing agent is not going to represent you? They can't, right?
Right.
Like, what is missing in that?
All they're going to do is do more open houses, and they're going to stop doing unrepresented buyer leads.
But the point is, John,
They're
that
not going to do it.
right, people need to understand that the listing agent every time and we'll just talk about Maryland because it could be different in other states, but we'll just talk about Maryland for a second. The listing agent is legally bound to the seller. Understand
Sure.
that simple fact.
They
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 cannot.
can't represent both sides.
No,
And
that's,
since they can't, they don't want to waste their time. Just say it like that.
but not
They
only
don't
that,
want to waste their time.
if they want to work with you, you can represent yourself as a buyer. You can go in
Good
and
luck.
right,
Good luck.
right, but you can
Good
legally,
luck.
you can go
Good
in
luck.
and you can say, I want to buy this house and I don't want buyer representation.
Good.
And the seller's going to say, excellent, right? That listing agent's going to say,
I'm the listing agent. I'm not saying excellent. I'm saying here comes a pain in my ass.
right. Well, that may be true, but here's the thing. I'm going to say, excellent. Please sign this piece of paper that says you understand that I represent the seller. That's the first thing you're going to sign if you tell me as a listing agent that you are going to represent yourself. Okay, can you please sign this legal document that informs you that I represent the seller and that my legal responsibility is to the seller, right?
They don't even know what that
Sure.
means.
Oh, sure, because I'm going to save so much money.
They don't know
And
what it means. You're not going to save
they
anything.
don't know. They don't know. So
You're
then
not
they're
going to
going
save
to say,
anything.
right, they're going to say, can you write the offer for me?
Sure. Give me the answer to
Right?
these 11 questions. Give me the answer to these 11 questions.
All right, what's your 11 questions?
What day do you want to make it effective?
Okay,
What's your
so
sales price? How much
how much
deposit?
offer?
How are you
Right.
financing it? Are you doing inspections?
Okay.
What's your closing date?
Okay. Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Right. But how do they know the closing date?
I don't know. Make one up. Oh, I want to do 3 years from tomorrow. Okay, write it in.
Right. Like that's what I'm saying. This is a 1,000-piece puzzle, guys. It's not a 8-piece 3-year-old puzzle.
But
like
that's why,
everybody-
as a listing agent, I'm not going to get involved.
I hear you. Are you
You want to
gonna
represent yourself? Great. But I'm not going to write your offer.
Right.
I'm not going to help you write
send
your
me your
offer.
offer? Send me your offer. Oh, I can't do that because I don't have.
You don't
I
have
don't know how to
access to
write
the
a
documents because you didn't
contract.
pay for them? Okay.
I know, right? I know. And so the listing, so there was a guy, and I talked about him a little while ago, and he was shocked. He was absolutely shocked that his house sat on the market. The listing agent, he was like, I can't believe that we don't have more showings. They were having open houses. People were walking through, but they weren't interested. They literally, there was the same house, same model, same everything down the street that had gone on the market and closed before he had an offer on the one because he wasn't paying a buyer agent. Who's going to do it? I mean,
Nobody.
Nobody in their right mind that understands real estate is going to not be represented.
No.
Like, if you're a realtor or you were a realtor for a couple years and you're familiar with the contracts of the state that you're in and you can represent yourself, then by all means, go ahead.
Have at it.
Have at it. But if you're not, then
have at it anyway.
Right. Go ahead and good luck. Just remember what we're telling you on this podcast. That
listen. So
not a good idea.
You and I have both shown houses where, for whatever reason, the seller wants to stick around for the showing, right?
Oh God, yes.
And so all we have to do is say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm showing the house. I didn't know anybody was home. Well, I was thinking about going out, but I decided to stay home." Okay. And then next thing you know, the floodgates opened on the dam. The seller is telling you everything. Well, I raised my kids here. I've owned the house since 1977. We paid this for the house. I mean, I even had a seller at the home inspection appointment say to my buyer, "Whoo, I'm so glad you came along when you did, because the roof is shot and the windows are shot."
Oh my God.
At the home inspection.
Right.
That's why, go ahead.
Go ahead. Right. And
it'll just fall out like
Yeah. And you know what? So I want to invite any consumers out there that have had an experience that they want to share with us, because we will welcome you onto this podcast and let you come in and tell us about what your experience was, to share your story with us.
Oh, your great unrepresented experience.
Your great
Woo!
unrepresented experience. I mean, I have worked with a number of unrepresented buyers in my 20 years. I certainly have. And there's a few things that have happened that, you know, were really questionable. And not that I violated anything, I did not. But when I tell somebody, here's the comps that I used to list this house, that's what you're getting. You're getting the comps that show and support the sales price. Another agent might, you know, find 5 other houses that fit that criteria for you and you didn't even see them. So there's so many pieces of the puzzle that you really do have to know what you're doing. You have to understand that the listing agent's hands are tied. They are tied. They cannot suggest you have a home inspection.
No.
It's that simple. If that listing agent is saying, look, take a look around, and then, I'd really suggest you get a home inspection, you're not going to hear that from the listing agent,
No.
because that violates their agreement with the seller. Their
Right.
job is to present the best possible offer to the seller.
All offers.
And all offers, right? Present all, but really find the best potential buyer. And
Yeah.
if that means one that has not done their homework, that's what it means. If it means one that is willing to trust them, then okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And
I'll wait for the chips to fall. It'll be what it'll
I
be.
don't think, I will say right now, John, and maybe you and I can work out an agreement right now on this podcast, but I don't think I'm representing buyers that come to my listings, not for a couple years, until things iron out, because the lawsuits that are going to come out of this are going to be tremendous. I
They
think.
will. And let me tell you, they're going to start day one with shoppers.
Yep. So John will be
Day one with shoppers.
right. If you're looking at a listing, I will assign John to you as a buyer's agent, and
Yeah.
we will not, we are both professionals. We will not, and vice versa, probably the same thing. If John has a listing, he can refer you to me. I'll represent you on the buyer side. And, most realtors out there work very well with other realtors. It's a very professional, successful transaction when you're working with two professionals. You don't even know the stuff that goes on. You think John and I yell at each other here. Put us in a transaction, my claws.
It's just going to be a new world. I'm not concerned because I've always operated under the same premise. I don't open doors for non-clients. There's no more presumed buyer agency.
No. And that was the question.
There's no more presumed buyer agency. So nobody, and listen, if somebody opens a door for you and you haven't signed anything, you should be afraid.
Well, that would be the first big X for me, because they're willing to violate.
That's the first red
everything.
flag.
Yeah, first red flag, first big red flag.
Right.
They allowed you to see a house without that buyer broker being signed.
Yeah.
That is the first big red flag. I have a buyer right now that's coming in from out of state, and she is looking for specific properties that, when you talk about, I'm just going to give you some of the criteria that she told me. And I'm not making fun of her, certainly. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. And I'm trying to follow her criteria, right? So she tells me she would like to have a condo townhome, but and coming in the door cannot have any stairs. So I'm like, okay, so no stairs in a townhouse. There are some patio homes that are attached to townhomes. So they're very few and far between, but they're out there. And then she will consider stairs inside the townhome. So I'm like, okay. And then there's only certain zip codes that she's willing to look at. So, I mean, The list is long. My job is to learn her list, to make sure I understand exactly what she's looking for. And that's an example of how difficult it can be to understand what your buyer's thinking. Because she's out of state, I'm going to go find these houses for her. And she's going to like load me up with all the criteria that I need. But no stairs outside, okay for stairs inside. And I'm like, okay, how do you wrap
That
your head
doesn't
around that?
exist. Doesn't exist.
Right. It's hard. It's going to be hard.
Doesn't
So,
exist.
right. You've got to be able to negotiate and talk to your representative, your realtor, and make sure that you understand that the more criteria and the more exact you can be, the better. But if you say too much, they're going to start eliminating options because no stairs outside means no stairs outside.
Yeah, but if it doesn't exist, it's like somebody
Right.
came by our office about 2 months ago,
Yeah.
and I wasn't here. Gary was here, and the lady said, older gentleman said, "Here's what I'm looking for. I want a house in a nice neighborhood, with good schools, and my budget's 200 grand in Howard County." There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, I'm
Nothing to
sorry.
talk
We
about.
can't help you.
You
Right.
can't, and no offense to the people that live in this community, but you can't get that. Hell, the
There's not a
condos
condo
condos
available.
are 240,
250 and up. Right.
so it doesn't exist. So here's the thing. So if you're meeting with a buyer and that's a criteria, I can save you the effort if that's not here.
Right. It's not an option.
It's not here.
Yeah, and you're doing a service. You're providing a service by being honest, like locking somebody into an agreement with you when you know you cannot provide them that service.
It's a
It
waste of
doesn't help
everybody's
anybody.
time.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
help anybody.
So I
It's
spoke to
just
his son.
creating disappointment.
He left his son's phone number. I called his son. His son answered the phone.
Yeah.
Said your dad came by our office and said he was looking for something around 200 in Howard County. He goes, my father has unrealistic expectations,
So the
which is
son,
why I didn't come by your office. Because if his expectations were ridiculous, then I would involve myself. But they're ridiculous, so I won't.
yeah. So people understand that we feel you're hurt. Like we know $200,000 is it's $250,000 almost. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's a
but
quarter
it
of a
doesn't
million.
exist.
And right. And so we're not trying to not work with you, but we are trying to say, working with you in a realistic manner is important. It matters to you that we're honest. I mean, if you go to Carroll County out in Tawny Town or somewhere, you might find a condo for 200,000, but you're not finding it in Howard County.
We don't make the market.
No.
We just report on the market.
All right, John. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you. Everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any questions or if you want to come on here and share some stories, well, you're welcome to. We'll look forward to it.
Story time with Sue and John.
Story time with Sue and John. Yeah, especially if it's a good one.